The smoke from my brother's backyard barbecue carried the scent of grilled steaks and absolute betrayal. I stood by my car, holding the very last box of my belongings, staring at the giant banner he had hung across the deck. "Goodbye, freeloader, don't come back." My own father laughed, throwing a hot dog at my windshield, shouting, "Your last free meal, loser." They had entirely stripped me of my dignity, celebrating my eviction like it was a national holiday. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just pulled out my phone, snapped a single photo of them laughing under that cruel banner, and drove away. They thought they had finally broken me and won the ultimate prize. What they didn't realize was that by kicking me out, they had just triggered a hidden financial trapdoor. Follow my story until the end, and comment the city you're watching from, so I can see how far my voice has reached. Exactly 1 week later, my phone rang. It was them. And they were begging. My name is Clare Bennett, and at 27 years old, I always believed that family was supposed to be your ultimate safety net. I was wrong. The smoke from my brother Brody's backyard barbecue carried the scent of grilled steaks and absolute, unadulterated betrayal. I stood tightly gripping the handles of the very last cardboard box containing my belongings, staring blankly at the massive, obnoxious banner he had proudly hung across the wooden deck. It read in bold, mocking letters, "Goodbye, freeloader, don't come back." The cruel words burned into my mind as my own father let out a booming laugh, casually throwing a half-eaten hot dog directly at my car windshield. "Your last free meal, loser," he shouted, his voice dripping with spite. Brody stood right beside him, holding a beer can and smirking like he had just won a championship trophy. They had entirely stripped me of my dignity, choosing to celebrate my sudden eviction as if it were a joyful national holiday. I didn't cry in front of them, and I completely refused to give them the satisfaction of hearing me scream. Instead, I calmly pulled out my smartphone, snapped a single clear photo of the two of them laughing hysterically under that cruel banner, and got into the driver's seat. As I turned the ignition and drove away from the family home toward my modest new apartment, I looked at the image on my screen. They thought they had finally broken me. They had no idea what was coming. To understand how we arrived at that backyard circus, you have to know the truth. I was never a freeloader. For the past 3 agonizing years, I was the sole pillar holding our fractured family together. When Dad lost his job and spiraled into deep debt, it wasn't Brody who stepped up. It was me. I quietly managed the household accounts, paid the soaring utility bills, and transferred thousands of my own hard-earned dollars to keep the mortgage from defaulting. I sacrificed my savings, my social life, and my peace of mind just to ensure they had a roof over their heads. But Brody was the golden child who could do no wrong. He possessed a toxic talent for manipulation, and while I was working late shifts, he was whispering venom into Dad's ear. He systematically convinced Dad that my financial oversight was actually an attempt to control the house and treat them like charity cases. He made me out to be an entitled parasite. Dad, blinded by his pride and his favorite son's lies, handed me a 30-day eviction notice without looking me in the eye. On my final walk to the door, I tried to reason with them one last time. "You need to listen to me," I warned calmly, holding a folder of statements. "The household infrastructure is deeply tied to my name. If I leave, the foundation goes with me." Brody just scoffed, waving his hand dismissively while Dad muttered about me trying to scare them. They genuinely believed they were inheriting a debt-free kingdom. They were too blinded by their unearned arrogance to realize they had just cut their own lifeline. When I unlocked the door to my new apartment, the silence was absolute bliss. I set down my last box, sat at my small kitchen table, and opened my laptop. It was time for a clean, surgical break. For years, I had allowed my credit cards, bank accounts, and personal information to act as the hidden machinery running the family home. They wanted me out, so it was only fair that my financial footprint left with me. Methodically, I logged into each online portal. I started with the electric company, clicking through the settings to remove my primary bank account and instantly unlinking my saved credit card from the automated billing system. Next came the high-speed fiber internet and the premium streaming packages, the ones Brody used every single day while lounging on the sofa. I canceled the subscriptions entirely. If they wanted entertainment and Wi-Fi, they could input their own card numbers. Finally, I tackled the most critical anchor, the bank. I pulled up the secondary loan agreement I had been quietly co-signing to prevent Dad's old debts from ruining the property. I filled out the official digital paperwork to formally remove myself as a guarantor and submitted an authorized request to decouple my name from the joint household water and gas meters. By the time I closed my laptop, the digital lifeline holding their comfortable lifestyle together had been completely severed. They wanted independence from the freeloader, and I was giving it to them. For the next 7 days, my phone remained completely silent. There were no texts, no apologetic calls, and certainly no check-ins to see how I was adjusting to my new apartment. It was a suffocating quiet, but it gave me the exact space I needed to heal. I spent my mornings drinking coffee in a sunlit kitchen that belonged entirely to me, focusing heavily on my own career and rediscovering a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. I purposefully kept my distance, resisting any urge to peek back into their world. Meanwhile, beneath that calm surface, the automated financial dominoes I had set in motion were beginning to systematically collapse. Brody and Dad were completely oblivious to how real-world logistics worked. On Tuesday morning, the automated system attempted to pull the monthly payment for the high-speed internet, and failed. By Wednesday, the premium streaming channels vanished from Brody's massive television. They likely assumed it was a minor technical glitch, completely unaware that the worst was yet to come. The real hammer dropped on Friday afternoon. Without my credit card automatically injecting funds into the utility accounts, the power company executed a scheduled shutoff for non-payment. Simultaneously, the bank issued a severe immediate default notice regarding the co-signed loan, demanding the full outstanding balance within days, or they would initiate foreclosure proceedings. The hidden framework that allowed them to live so comfortably had vanished. The crushing reality of what it actually cost to run that house hit them all at once, shattering their unearned arrogance. On Saturday morning, my phone suddenly exploded with life. The screen lit up with a relentless barrage of missed calls, urgent voicemails, and increasingly frantic text messages from both Brody and Dad. The peaceful sanctuary I had carefully built over the week was momentarily punctured by the vibrating device on my kitchen counter. I let it ring for an hour, watching the notifications pile up, before I finally decided to swipe the screen and answer. "Claire! What the hell did you do?" Brody's voice screamed through the speaker, the arrogant, smug tone he possessed at the barbecue completely gone, replaced by pure, unbridled panic. "The power is completely out, the internet is cut off, and Dad's credit cards were just declined at the grocery store. We can't even log into the house account." In the background, I could hear Dad yelling anxiously over a letter. "And some bank representative just called saying the mortgage is facing immediate foreclosure within days." I took a slow, deliberate sip of my coffee, feeling an unexpected wave of absolute calm wash over me. "Fix the glitch in the system right now, Claire," Brody demanded, his breathing heavy. "We know you did something to the accounts before you left." "There is no glitch, Brody," I said, my voice steady and completely devoid of anger. "You both made it very clear that you didn't want a freeloader ruining your home. So when I left, my money and my credit cards left with me. I simply stopped paying the bills for a family that throws hot dogs at my car and hangs insulting banners on the deck." "But we can't afford this," he stuttered, the reality finally sinking in. "You have to help us." "You wanted the kingdom, Brody," I replied smoothly. "Now you get to figure out how to pay for it." Less than 2 hours after that phone call, A heavy, desperate knocking echoed through my front door. I walked over and opened it to find Brody and Dad standing on my porch, looking completely humbled and exhausted. The expensive beer and smug smiles from the barbecue were nowhere to be found. Instead, Dad looked older. His shoulders slumped as he clutched a stack of red past-due notices, while Brody nervously shifted his weight from side to side. "Claire, please," Dad said, his voice cracking with an emotion that sounded dangerously like regret. "We didn't know how much you were doing. The bank is going to take the house. We need you to sign back on as a guarantor. Just until we get on our feet." I leaned against the doorframe, looking down at them. I slowly brought up my phone, swiping to the photo I had taken just 1 week ago at the barbecue. I turned the screen toward them, displaying the image of the two of them laughing hysterically underneath that giant "Goodbye Freeloader" banner. "Do you remember this?" I asked softly, the silence on the porch stretching out. "You threw a party to celebrate throwing me out. You humiliated me, called me a parasite, and treated my kindness like weakness. I spent 3 years sacrificing my life to protect you, and you repaid me with a hot dog thrown at my windshield. We were wrong, okay?" Brody practically begged, stepping forward. "We need your help, Claire. We can't do this without you." "The freeloader has officially left the building," I said, looking them both in the eye. I stepped back and firmly closed the door, locking it tightly. It took exactly 3 months for the dust to fully settle on the ruins of their unearned arrogance. Unable to refinance the heavy loans or secure a single bank to back their terrible credit, Brody and Dad were forced to sell the family home under the crushing weight of foreclosure. They had to downsize significantly, moving into a cramped, run-down 2-bedroom apartment on the edge of town. Dad took a low-paying retail job to cover his basic expenses, while Brody finally had to face the reality of hard work instead of relying on my sacrifices. As for me, closing that door was the catalyst for a beautiful new beginning. I used my recovered savings to decorate my apartment, transforming it into a peaceful, thriving sanctuary dedicated to my own growth. I advanced rapidly in my career, finally keeping the money I earned instead of pouring it into a bottomless pit of family entitlement. Walking away didn't make me cold. It made me strong enough to realize that love should never cost your dignity. Now, I'm genuinely curious about everyone who listened to my journey today. If you had walked into that backyard barbecue and seen that insulting banner, how would you have handled the situation? Would you have walked away quietly like I did? Or would you have confronted them right then and there? Comment your thoughts below. And meanwhile, I'm leaving 2 other incredible stories on the final screen that are absolute channel favorites, and they will definitely surprise you. Thank you so much for watching until the very end.